Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
Brought to you by GlanbiaConnect.com.
Hello and welcome to Farmview. Well, as usual, it's Kieran O'Connor here with your weekly farming programme, and once again I have a very busy show for you. This week, on this week's programme, I'll hear all about a new peak milk supply policy being introduced by Glanbia Ireland to manage the rate of growth in peak milk supplies. I'll also preview next week's Water Quality Week, which aims to provide practical advice and solutions to farmers, and preview next week's webinar on farm safety and the CAP with event organiser John Cummins.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com, Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Well, earlier this week, Glanbia announced peak milk supply management policy. It's been introduced as a temporary mechanism to manage the growth rate of peak milk supplies from next year, 2022. And joining us on the line to discuss this recent announcement from Glanbia is their Corporate Affairs Director, Pat O'Keefe. Pat, welcome to our programme.
Thanks, Kieran.
Pat, peak supply management, obviously it's been spoken about for the last year or two, but definitely a lot of farmers are taking it back at this idea that you're going to put in a peak supply management policy.
Yeah, look, Kieran, it's disappointing for farmers that have expanded rapidly in the last number of years in particular, and for farmers that are still expanding, this is certainly disappointing news and, has impact on their business. There's no doubt about that. Unfortunately, it's a position we find ourselves in. We've no option. We had plans to have a plant in Bellevue in place for 2022 to handle the growth milk that has happened in the last number of years. That plant, was granted planning permission by Kilkenny County Council and then subsequently appealed to Board Penala and was granted permission by Penala, but unfortunately it's the subject of a court challenge now. So we're awaiting the outcome of the court challenge, but until that's clarified, we can't proceed with the plant. So the milk is there, the farmers have produced it, so we have to be clear to farmers and give them the facts, and the facts are, unfortunately, for next year, we can handle some growth in peak milk in, the April, May, June period, but we can't handle, total freedom to grow, unfortunately, in that peak period. We can handle growth outside April, May, June, because then the plants are not full. But that April, May, June period, the plants will be full.
And Pat, is April, May, June, it's just those 3 months that the problem would be as regards processing facility?
Yeah, look at it. The majority of the milk in Ireland is produced off the grass growth curve. That's the most profitable from a farmer point of view. And, the seasonal peaks then tend to be in that period, so that the plants tend to be all full at that time of year as cows' production ramps up. So, for the shoulders, as we call it, the plants are not fully utilised. But obviously during those peak periods they are. So how we're going to have to manage it is just basically have a restraint. And look, we will be able to facilitate some growth. And we've come up with a fairly detailed policy in terms of how to allocate the available volumes in terms of,
right.
The suppliers under the average will be allowed to grow by 5% over peak based on their previous reference period, we'll call it, which would be 2018 or 2019 or 2020. And then for the larger suppliers, it's a 2.5% annual growth rate at peak. Now, obviously, they can grow outside of peak. But look, it's a challenging piece for suppliers that are expanding.
Well, obviously, with the demise of milk quota, and obviously particularly down here in Waterford in the southeast, and Waterford in particular, there's been a huge expansion. What type of expansion has there been? Indeed, how would Waterford rate to other counties within the Glanbia area as regards expansion over the last number of years?
Look, there's no doubt that the removal of milk quotas has been a huge economic success in terms of rural Ireland, the rural Ireland economy. The likes of a county like Waterford now, there's 140 or 150 million euro coming in each year from Glanbia for milk payments, and that obviously is recycled through the economy as farmers, spend on farm inputs and on labour. So that's been a huge positive story. Obviously, Waterford, I suppose, one of the counties, further ahead maybe than others in terms of larger than average farm size, dairy farm size, and in a lot of cases, maybe a lot of the expansion has already happened. We're seeing now maybe the new entrants that are coming in are in counties like Carlow, Kildare, Wicklow, counties like that, and Wexford maybe less so, and say in Cork and Waterford. But look, it's been hugely positive. It's been very strong growth. There was a pent-up demand there in terms of capability and tradition in dairy farming, and it's just unfortunate that's been constrained now. Hopefully it's a short-term phenomenon. We have to wait and see what the court decides on the planning for the plant. Like I say, we can facilitate some growth at peak, but it's not at the level maybe that some people would like.
And Pat, what about Glanbia working with other processors, or have you exhausted that whole avenue? Look,
that's a huge part of the mix already, Kieran, in terms of handling the milk at peak. We've arrangements with a number of other processors to actually take some of that milk at peak. But look, the reality is the majority of milk in the island of Ireland is produced off of grass, so every plant tends to be full through that same period. So there's only a limit in terms of how much processing capacity that is available. We also are obviously looking at, making some investments in terms of our existing plants in Ballyragget and in Bellevue and in Virginia and in Wexford in terms of maximising the amount of litres that can be processed in those plants through the peak season. But there's only limits to that you can do. I suppose, look, the other thing we're doing, Kieran, is to try and help this process with a few elements, that will deal with some of the scenarios that will arise. And I suppose I'd go through those in kind of three pieces. One would be, there is genuine cases where, for example, a farm herd was affected by, TB, for example, in 2019 or 2020. The production might have been lower than expected in that period. So again, we're creating a reserve pool to try and deal with some of those scenarios. And also, there would be some very challenging scenarios where farmers might have bought the farm next door or leased a long-term lease on the farm next door to do a major expansion plan and invested heavily on the back of that. And again, we need to try and, if we can, see if there's milk available in a reserve pool for those types of scenarios. Now again, a lot of farmers will be looking for access to that kind of pool. And I suppose one of the things we're doing is a retirement scheme, which for suppliers who might decide, that now is the time they'd like to retire, and there's going to be an incentive there for those farmers, which will create headroom in that peak processing capacity. So if somebody is thinking of getting out in 2 or 3 years' time, there might be an opportunity now that they might decide to hang up the clusters by the 1st of January of next year, and then free up some capacity at peak for other than there'll be details going out to all buyers as an opportunity maybe that some people might consider. And then finally, Kieran, I suppose the third element of that will be to enhance the existing seasonality bonuses in terms of producing milk, in December, January and February in particular, because obviously they're expensive months to produce milk, so that will suit some people in terms of maybe changing their calving pattern or tweaking it, and that there'll be a 4 cent a litre December unconditional bonus and 4 cent in January and 3 cent in February, and that will help offset the cost, because it is more expensive to produce milk in those months as opposed to producing it straight off grass.
Pat, in the press release you mentioned a 30% cut in price for volume delivered beyond specified levels. Obviously from people, and you mentioned special cases, but a lot of people have been new entrants coming in from either tillage or dry stock farms. Will there be special concessions for them as well? But 30% cut for people is going to be a big hit on a lot of farmers on farm.
Oh, look, there's no doubt about that, and look, it's at least 30%, and look, it could be more in the sense that if a whole lot of milk arrives that can't be processed, there's going to be a cost in terms of finding a home for that milk, and so the deduction could be greater than 30%, unfortunately, and that's not what we want. Now look, what the board have said is that any money collected through that means will be reallocated and paid out in off-peak bonuses, but ideally there'd be no money collected in that mechanism. To your question about new entrants, look, new entrants, and there's a lot of recent entrants, and look, there's been a healthy flow of entrants coming in, no different than there's been a steady flow of retirements as well. And so look, we have to try and be fair to everyone on the board, put a lot of work into this. So they have, as the policy is set out, there's a 5% growth rate allowed for farmers under the average supply. Okay. There's a 2.5% annual growth rate for.
So there is special concessions for them.
And look, recent entrants will be allowed to grow up to the average at whatever rate. If they came in the last 3 years, they'll be allowed to grow up to once they get up to the average, and then they'd move to the 2.5% growth rate. So look, it's challenging, I've no doubt for those, but again, the reserve pool hopefully will be there to cater for some of the more difficult scenarios.
Pat, of course, the farming organisation, the IFA, say it's the first step towards milk quota, two-tier milk supplying system, while the ICMSA say very significant and could have enormous implications. So both farming organisations obviously weren't happy with the announcement, but yet I'm sure a lot of people see the rationale behind it.
Look, we met the ICMSA and the IFA in the last 24 hours, Kieran, and look, sure, of course they're disappointed for their members, and they wouldn't be doing their job if they weren't expressing that. It's not something we wanted to be doing either. Now, in fairness, we had constructive discussions with them in terms of, they're aware of the reality and the background to this in terms of why this measure is required. I think we had good constructive discussions. We're going to work very closely with them. They've already obviously had calls from individual farmers who are affected, and obviously we will obviously work no different than them. We'll be working to try and work through those challenging scenarios as well. So, look, I think we have a good relationship with the both farm organisations. They have a job to do in terms of expressing the views of their members, but unfortunately, this is not something, one member of the group in one of the farm organisations said to us, could we not have waited and announced this later? But unfortunately, we are where we are in terms of the planning process, so we can't.
For the Bellevue plant,
certainty quality, yeah, and again, the breeding season is coming up for the spring season for the majority of spring calving herds. So in terms of farmers need certainty to be able to plan, and if a farmer is going into a bank or going into an accountant, they need to be able to do their business plans on the basis of all the available information in terms of where we are. Look, in the coming weeks and months, we'll get an outcome from the court and we'll have more information, and then that'll go a particular journey, and we'll update our farmers as we have more information. But we had a duty, the board had to assess the situation, agree a policy, and then we have a duty to communicate it. And we did that this week by communicating it through our council, and now we're meeting all our regional committees, and we met the 2 farm organisations, as I said, in the last 24 hours, and we'll continue to meet them. And look, like I say, we're all going to be working together to assess and deal with difficult scenarios. And I mean, there's a challenge here. There's been a period of fairly significant expansion in the Glanbia territory. I mean, it's been over 6% per year for the last 4 or 5 years. So that's a significant growth in the milk pool. It's now grown to 3 billion litres, and that's been very positive for the rural economy. But we are not in a position to handle, above it. We can cater for some growth next year, but not to the level that maybe some people would have ambition to do.
Pat O'Keefe, Glanbia Ireland's Corporate Affairs Director. Pat, listen, thanks for taking our call, indeed, and thanks for the update on that peak milk supply policy, the introduction of a temporary mechanism by Glanbia Ireland. I'm sure we'll hear a lot more about it over the next few months. Pat, thanks for taking the call.
Thanks, Kieran.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com, Ireland's biggest online farming shop and more.
Well, next week, Teagasc have the Water Quality Week, organised by Teagasc. Tell us all about it. We're joined from Teagasc by Cathal Summers. Cathal, welcome back to our programme.
Thanks a million, Kieran.
Cathal, the background to this, and of course your involvement in this whole area over the last number of years.
Yeah, I suppose, look, I'm working in Waterford the last couple of years as an ASAP advisor, and what ASAP is, it's the Agriculture Sustainability Support and Advisory Programme. And it was set up, I suppose, over the last 10 years or 15 years, water quality is slightly in decline. And rather than put in heavy regulation, the government came together with the EPA and the local authorities and decided we'd put advisors in place to help farmers rather than throwing in new regulation. So the last 2 years I've been going around helping farmers, and really what I do is we go onto the farm, go for a walk with a farmer, and we look around. I look and see if there's anything I can help or suggest that might reduce nutrient loss to the river. And the 3 kind of key areas we look at is farmyard, nutrient management planning and land management. So really there is a support service to farmers. We've picked out 190 areas across the country. I know there's about 7 of those areas in Waterford, and at the moment I'm working down in Tallow. I've worked in Rathgormack and Kilrosty there last year, and in around Dungarvan area as well, and hopefully I'll be getting into the south of the city, or of Waterford City, into around the St. John's River there as well this year. Seen for the last 10 years that the regulation thing can go so far, and it does a certain amount of work, but there's no better thing than working with a farmer and trying to come up with solutions. And look, I don't have all the solutions. Generally, we put our 2 heads together, myself and the farmer. We'll identify a problem if there's one there, and we'll try and come up with a solution together. Look, the man on the ground has as many answers as I have. The other thing, part of our programme, is it's not just Teagasc. There's 20 advisors from Teagasc. We also have 10 from the dairy co-ops, and we have a couple down here in Glanbia as well, around in the kind of this region around Leinster. So that's really important. We also work with scientists from the local authority, so they give us information in the local area, and actually farmers love this part of it, because they'll come out and they'll tell you exactly what's the issue with your river, and then we come up with solutions trying to help farmers.
Do you find the farmers are embracing this change, and how difficult is it getting a farmer on board? What response have you got?
It's really, really positive. I'm finding water farmers, they're really taking it on board, what we're trying to do. They understand that we're not coming in to inspect farms and like that. We're completely coming in to help people out and try and fix or come up with solutions. But the one thing farmers really see is they know that to make their business work going forward, there is some issues there, and if we don't get on top of the issues, it'll affect their business in future. So everyone's working very well together.
And it's really farming practices. So World Water Day is on Monday next, but you might briefly outline what's happening from Monday to Friday.
Yeah, I suppose the big issue with COVID-19 and the lockdown is we haven't been able to get out into farms. So we thought we'd come up with something that we could keep in contact with farmers and get out some good information. So World Water Week, we've come up with that concept, and we're running it from Monday to Friday. We broke it down into a number of things each day. So it's going to be a mixture between videos and articles and lots of information for farmers, and they'll be able to get to it online on the Teagasc website. We have newspaper articles going out in the local papers, and we're on the radio trying to promote as well. But I suppose we broke it down on Monday. The scientists, the catchment scientists, they're going to talk about issues and how they look at water quality. So they look at, do they take their samples, how they do kick samples, and you're going to be able to see all that information, how they carry it out. Tuesday we're going to look at all nitrogen, so low emission spreading. We're going to look at protected urea. We'll have some Teagasc scientists telling you how nitrate is lost to rivers and breaking it down. Wednesday then we'll look at phosphorus and land runoff. Everyone's familiar if you see brown water going out the gate, that's a bad sign. Thursday then we're going to look at pesticides. The last couple of years we've heard a lot about MCPA and also glyphosate and the other pesticides. Maybe it's probably a good time of year. People will be thinking about maybe looking at dock spreading soon. So, and on the last day then we're going to look at the farmyard, some management practices. And then we'll finish it off on the Friday we'll have a webinar, a Teagasc webinar, a Signpost Series webinar from 9:30 to 10:30. You'll be able to get it on the Teagasc website, and it's a chat about the whole week. And we'll have Noel Meehan, our manager, will be there, and Eddie Burgess of the Catchments Programme will be there to answer questions.
So really each day there's a different topic, and before we come on air you mentioned these will be up on the website, so if you don't catch the Monday webinar on Monday, it'll be still up on the website for you to catch up on.
It's a busy time of the year. I know farmers are doing a lot of calving at the moment, so they are busy, so it'll be there for you. Whenever you have a bit of time, 5 minutes to spare, 10 minutes to spare, you can tip in and have a look there and catch up on a few things.
So once again, to recap, it runs from Monday next the 22nd to Friday the 26th, and for more information you might give them the details how they log on.
Yep, so there'll be loads of different ways you can get it on all the websites and social media pages of Teagasc and on the teagasc.ie website, but also if you look out on the local authority websites and also all the dairy co-ops as well.
So as you said, that your local co-op with Glanbia obviously .ie, and also of course the Teagasc website, teagasc.ie.
Exactly, yes. Million.
Well, a very important webinar takes place on Thursday night next. Is covering the whole area and the important area of farm safety, as well as an update on the Common Agricultural Policy. It's been organised by Waterford Senator John Cummins, who joined us on the line. John, welcome to our programme.
Thanks, Kieran.
John, farm safety, obviously we've been discussing on our programme over the last number of years, the important role, indeed the disappointing side of the whole farming industry is the number of fatalities year on year, indeed serious injuries. How did you get involved, or where did the idea come from the whole area of having a webinar on farm safety, indeed also on the CAP, but as regards farm safety?
Well, I suppose I want to be able to engage with the agricultural community in Waterford. I suppose it's one thing that I learned while out canvassing the general election last year was that, people do appreciate engagement. They appreciate the opportunity to speak to those people that are going to have direct impact on policy, both at national and at European level. So I suppose I took it upon myself to try and organise an event where people would have the opportunity to engage. So I have Minister Martin Hayden, who has special responsibility for farm safety, and Colin Markey MEP, who's one of our new Irish MEPs that sits on the Agricultural Committee at the European Parliament. And
what format will it take and what areas will you cover, particularly within the farm safety? Because there are some new initiatives there, but it's a very important area. You know, Minister Hayden has been driving the whole importance of farm safety and keeping it to the fore. Yeah, as you know, Kieran, farm safety is a very important topic. I don't think it can be spoken about enough, to be honest with you. Like the fact that fatal accidents on farms account for nearly 50% of all workplace fatal incidents each year, is a very frightening statistic. And it's not just about the fatalities either. It's about people that get injured and have life-lasting injuries that can impact both on themselves and their families and their ability to earn a living. So I suppose Martin is going to speak about the initiatives that are there in place and to assist people in being able to access funding streams. And then Colin will speak on the Common Agricultural Policy, and we'll have a general questions and answers session after that, which I'll chair. Now, the Common Agricultural Policy, obviously, because of Brexit in particular and the ongoing COVID implications and in the food industry in general, Common Agricultural Policy has been kind of put on the back burner, and I think it's important for people to get a chance to have an update, and no one better than Colin Markey, who really sits on the EU Committee of Agriculture. Yeah, absolutely. Look, I suppose, as you said, it has gone on the back burner. Much of the focus has been on the Brexit-related challenges that have ensued. But the agri-food sector accounts for nearly 10% of Ireland's exports and employs nearly 170,000 people. So it's very important that the new Common Agricultural Policy that comes into play at the start of 2023 good for Ireland and is good for Irish farmers, and there'll be an opportunity for people to engage with Colin in relation to that. So as regards Thursday night, how do people get involved and what time will you kick off? So we're going to start at 7:15. It's expected that it'll be about an hour and 15
2015. You can register for the event by emailing my own email, john.cummins@oir.ie, or you can call or text Lauren on 085 109 0927, and perhaps I can give those details to you, Kieran, maybe to put on the website.
No problem. Once again, the email john.cummins@oir.ie. Well, John, I think it's a good concept, particularly in the area of farm safety, and indeed you have a top-class panel assembled this Thursday night, 7:15. John Cummins, local senator. Once again, well done on organising such a webinar, farm safety and the Common Agricultural Policy update on Thursday night next. John, thanks for taking our call. Best of luck with the event next Thursday.
Thanks very much, Kieran. Much appreciated.
And before I go, a reminder as usual for our weekly Livestock March. Well, they continue. All sales now online. Waterford Ross Mart, in New Ross, cattle sales this Saturday morning from 9:30 with calves on sale from 10 o'clock, with a special weekly dairy sale every Friday. And don't forget on Mondays, Dungarvan Mart's cattle sale from 11 o'clock every Monday morning, with the calf sales now on every Thursday from 12 noon. Remember, all sales are on livestocklive.com. And a reminder also of the two events we previewed earlier. Teagasc Water Quality Week, well, that runs from Monday next to Friday the 26th. For more information, teagasc.ie. And the Farm Safety and CAP webinar, that takes place on Thursday, 7:15. For more information, john.cummins@oir.ie. And turning finally to racing, what a week to remember for local Waterford connections. Firstly, of course, pride of place goes to our own Knockeen Butlerstown trainer Henry de Bramett, special guest in our programme last week, and Henry captured the prestigious champion hurdle with his brilliant mare Honeysuckle, and with racing history with Rachel Blackmore on board, and then followed up with the prestigious champion chase as well as the Ballymore hurdle on Wednesday. What a start to the week indeed. Back home, Henry saddled doubles at Thurles and Gorn as well as Punchestown, while also at Gorn, Dungarvan jock Ian Power rode a fine winner for Kappa owner trainer brothers Richie and Paul Kiley, while Kappa trainer Declan Queally had a good winner at Navan. And at Limerick, we had a win for Kappa Quinn owner trainer Rob Murphy, while at Naas we had wins for Bricky Valley trainer Alice Curran and Dungarvan jock Ian Power, as well as Dungarvan trainer John Kiley, who captured the bumper with David Kiley on board. What a week indeed. Well, that's my lot for this week's programme. So from myself, Kieran O'Connor, it's goodbye for now. Once again, my thanks to Ollie and Sean for all their help in putting this week's programme together. So keep up the protocol, and hopefully I'll have your company again same time next week.
Farmview with Kieran O'Connor on WLR.
With GlanbiaConnect.com. Thousands of products in the palm of your hand.